A black Lincoln Continental glided into the I-94 rest stop, 45 miles west of Lansing, Michigan, at 10:15 a.m., its driver unaware that this quiet moment would spark a firestorm across America. James Whitaker, a tall black man in his late 50s, adjusted his charcoal suit, the morning sun glinting off his polished shoes. Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On" hummed softly from the car's speakers, blending with the distant roar of semis and the faint scent of vending machine coffee. He scrolled through his phone, reviewing notes for a noon meeting, his leather briefcase resting on the passenger seat. A memory flickered, his father's voice, steady and firm. "Stay calm, son, no matter what." James exhaled, unaware of the white state trooper cruiser pulling up behind him, its red and blue lights slicing through the morning haze. Officer Mark Daniels stepped out, eyes narrowed, his hand resting near his holster. From his perspective, a black man in a nice car at a rest stop spelled trouble. Without radioing for backup, Daniels approached, his boots crunching on gravel. James sensed the movement, lowered his window, and kept both hands on the steering wheel. "Good morning, officer," he said, voice even. "Is everything all right?" Daniels didn't answer, his gaze cold, calculating. "We got a report of a stolen vehicle matching this one, seen at a gas station nearby," he said, tone flat, almost daring James to argue. James blinked, confusion flickering across his face, not fear. "I'm not aware of any report, officer. I stopped here to check directions. I can show you my registration." Daniels ignored the offer, stepping back. "Out of the vehicle now," he barked, his politeness gone, replaced by raw authority. James's eyes tightened, but he stayed composed, opening the door slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding with deliberate calm. By the time Officer Sarah Klein arrived in a second cruiser, the situation had spiraled. Daniels had James at the rear of the Lincoln, hands raised, while Klein watched, hesitant but silent. "I'd like to know what I'm being accused of," James said, his voice firm yet measured. Daniels didn't respond, instead reaching into the car without permission, rummaging through the glove compartment. James stepped forward slightly. "Officer, I do not consent to a search," he said clearly. Daniels spun, face hard. "That's obstruction," he snapped, grabbing James's arm, twisting it behind his back and snapping on a cuff. Klein, after a pause, secured the other wrist. James didn't resist, his gaze steady, cutting through the tension. "You're making a mistake you can't undo," he said, his words heavy, prophetic. Across the lot, a young woman, Mia Torres, pulled out her phone, recording. Her voice trembled in the background. "This ain't right." A few travelers watched, one muttering, "He doesn't look like a thief." James walked to the cruiser, head high, dignity intact, despite the cuffs. In the back seat, he stared past the blurred trees, calculating, not angry. This wasn't over. Stick with this story, folks. It's a wild ride with twists you won't see coming. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories that hit hard and inspire change. James Whitaker sat in the stark holding area of the Jackson, Michigan State Police Precinct, the cold plastic chair biting into his back as fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like a swarm of angry bees. His wrists, still sore from the cuffs, bore faint red marks, a quiet reminder of the injustice that had unfolded just hours ago at the I-94 rest stop. The precinct hummed with chaos. Radio static crackled, keyboards clacked, and officers shuffled papers, their voices a low drone of routine indifference. James, still in his charcoal suit, sat tall, his polished shoes catching the light, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the frenetic energy around him. In his mind, a memory surfaced. His mother, a school teacher, telling him, "Hold your head high, James, even when the world tries to push it down." He exhaled, steadying himself, refusing to let the officer's assumptions break him. Officer Mark Daniels strutted past, his boots thudding, a smirk curling his lip as he muttered, Nice suit for a loiterer. James met his gaze, unflinching, but didn't reply. Officer Sarah Klein lingered nearby, her eyes darting away, discomfort etched in her frown. Yet she said nothing. The booking officer, a young man with tired eyes, typed James's ID into the system but barely glanced at it, treating him like just another name on a long list. James requested a phone call 3 times, his voice clear, polite, each word measured. I need to contact my office for an important meeting in Lansing. Each time, the officers brushed him off, one snapping, "You'll wait." Daniels leaned against a desk, arms crossed, his voice dripping with mockery. So, what's the story? Casing the rest stop? Waiting for a deal? James's jaw tightened, but his response was even. I was checking directions for work, that's all. His calm seemed to unsettle Daniels, who scoffed, "You people always got an excuse." Klein shifted, her boots scuffing the floor, but stayed silent, complicit in her hesitation. James knew the game. They wanted him to snap, to give them a reason to escalate. He wouldn't. He'd spent years counseling young men in similar rooms, their stories echoing his own now. The precinct's air grew heavier, thick with coffee and stale tension. Officers passed, some casting curious glances at James's tailored slacks, others whispering, "Thinks he's somebody." He heard it, but his face remained stone, disciplined. After nearly 2 hours, Sergeant Ellen Harper, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, paused by the holding area, her gaze lingering on James's posture. "Name?" she asked, voice clipped but curious. "James Whitaker," he replied, his tone carrying a quiet weight as if daring her to listen. Her brow furrowed. She'd heard that name before. Was it in a news article? A legal brief? The room seemed to hold its breath as she walked to a terminal. Stick with us, folks. This story is about to turn upside down. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more gripping tales of truth and justice. Sergeant Ellen Harper's fingers hovered over the precinct terminal, her sharp eyes narrowing as she typed James Whitaker's name into the system, the soft beep of the keyboard cutting through the Jackson, Michigan precinct's hum. The screen flickered, then loaded a profile that made her breath catch. Law degree from Michigan State, 20 years as a district court judge, presiding over the 14th District Court. James Whitaker wasn't just a man in a suit. He was a state judge, cuffed and held without cause. Her jaw tightened as she glanced through the glass at James, sitting upright in his charcoal suit, his polished shoes still gleaming under the fluorescent glare. She marched to the holding area, her boots tapping a steady rhythm, and faced officers Mark Daniels and Sarah Klein. "You arrested a judge?" she snapped, her voice low but slicing like a blade. Daniels stammered, his smirk gone. "He didn't say. He was just sitting there, looking suspicious." Harper's eyes blazed. "You had his ID, Mark. You didn't check it?" Klein's face drained of color, her silence louder than any excuse. Harper turned to James, now uncuffed, his wrists still red from the ordeal. "Mr. Whitaker, you're free to go? You mentioned a meeting in Lansing?" James stood, his 6-foot frame radiating quiet authority, and nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Noon with the governor on justice reform." His voice was calm, but each word carried weight, a promise this wasn't over. Harper's apology was swift, sincere. "This should never have happened, sir. Can we drive you to Lansing?" James shook his head, his eyes steady. "I'll get there myself, but this mistake, it's bigger than me." As he gathered his briefcase, Harper's phone buzzed with a notification. Mia Torres's video from the rest stop, now online, racking up thousands of views. The caption burned, "Cops cuff innocent man in suit." James walked out, head high, the precinct's buzz fading behind him. Officers exchanged glances, some confused, others uneasy, as the reality sank in. They'd detained a judge based on nothing but a glance and a bias. Harper watched the video again, her stomach churning at Daniels's rough grip on James's arm, Mia's voice in the background. "This ain't right." The clip was spreading, and with it, whispers of a reckoning. James, in his Lincoln Continental, drove toward Lansing, his mind not on anger, but on purpose, his father's words echoing. "Stay steady, son." The governor's office awaited, but something bigger was brewing, a storm that would shake more than one precinct. Keep listening, folks. This story's twists will leave you speechless. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more tales that uncover truth and demand justice. By dusk, the 27-second video from the I-94 rest stop had exploded across America, its raw truth igniting screens from Michigan to Maine. Mia Torres, a 25-year-old barista with fire in her veins, had uploaded the clip to TikTok and X, her caption a gut punch. "This is America 2025. The footage, James Whitaker, a black man in a crisp charcoal suit cuffed for no reason, racked up 1 million views by 6 p.m., the numbers climbing as the nation's pulse quickened. Hashtags like Justice for Whitaker and Stop Profiling surged, trending alongside freeze frames of Officer Mark Daniels's sneer. In a Lansing hotel, James sat on the edge of a bed, the TV blaring CNN's coverage. Judge detained in shocking case of racial bias. His phone buzzed. His wife, Angela, her voice steady but fierce. "James, speak your truth tomorrow. The world's watching." He nodded, though she couldn't see, his heart heavy yet resolute, his father's words echoing, "Stay steady, son." Then came the twist. Mia's follow-up post revealed her father was a retired Michigan trooper, a man who'd taught her to call out wrong even in his own ranks. The irony hit like a thunderclap. A cop's daughter exposing police bias, her video now at 2 million views. Outside the Jackson precinct, protesters gathered, their signs bold. "Dignity, not cuffs." Local news vans lined the streets, their lights casting long shadows, while national outlets like the Detroit Free Press and MSNBC picked up the story, splicing James's judicial profile with images of his arrest. The contrast, his tailored suit, his calm demeanor, the rough cuffs, struck a nerve. Civil rights leaders demanded Daniels and Klein's suspension, their voices rising like a chorus. The governor's office, confirming James's noon meeting, issued a statement. "We stand for equity and justice." Social media burned brighter, X posts amplifying Mia's clip with comments, "This judge deserves better," and "When will this stop?" In his hotel room, James watched, torn between gratitude and unease. He didn't want to be a symbol, just a man who'd earned his place through decades of work. Yet the video, raw and unfiltered, was shifting something bigger, like a fault line cracking open. Protesters' chants drifted through his window, their rhythm syncing with his heartbeat. A staffer from the governor's office called, her voice urgent. "Judge Whitaker, tomorrow's meeting. It's more than a discussion now. They're looking to you to lead." James frowned, gripping his leather briefcase, the weight of her words sinking in. What did they mean by lead? The question hung in the air, heavy as the Michigan night. He closed his eyes, not angry but calculating, ready for what came next. This wasn't just his story anymore. It was a spark, a movement, a call for change. Folks, this tale's climbing to a peak you won't believe. Stay with us for every twist. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for stories that shake the soul and demand justice, because voices like James Whitaker's deserve to be heard. At 10 a.m., James Whitaker strode through the oak double doors of room 312 in the Lansing Capitol, his dark blue suit crisp, his leather briefcase a steady weight in his hand, the murmur of reporters and aides fading as all eyes turned to him. The governor stood, extending a hand, his voice warm but heavy. "Judge Whitaker, we're honored you're here." James nodded, taking his seat at the head of the Justice Reform Roundtable, the room thick with anticipation. He spoke, his voice steady, resonant. Yesterday, I was handcuffed for being black in a suit, not for any crime. This isn't just my story, it's a wound in America's heart. The room fell silent, a young assemblywoman wiping a tear, the weight of his words settling like dust after a storm. The governor, voice tight, proposed an emergency hearing to review officers Mark Daniels and Sarah Klein's conduct, with James presiding. Murmurs rippled. Could he judge his own case? James's jaw tightened, his father's words echoing, "Stay steady, son." By noon, the lower chamber was packed, cameras rolling, air thick with tension. James sat at the bench, flanked by Judges Maria Chen and Robert Ellis, his presence commanding despite the red marks still faint on his wrists. Body camera footage played, showing Daniels's baseless aggression, Klein's silent complicity. Under questioning, Klein admitted she hadn't checked James's ID, her voice trembling. "I just followed orders." Daniels, pale, insisted he'd followed procedure, but his voice cracked as timestamps contradicted his report. James listened, his face stone, years on the bench honing his discipline. Then came the twist. He raised a hand, silencing the room. "To ensure justice is unquestioned, I recuse myself," he said, his tone unwavering. "No one should doubt this panel's fairness." Gasps echoed. Reporters scribbled, aides whispered. James stepped down, appointing Judge Chen to lead, her nod a silent vow to uphold his standard. The room shifted, his integrity a quiet thunderclap, dismantling any hint of bias. Chen's panel moved swiftly, reviewing witness statements, Mia Torres's viral video, and the officer's own logs. Daniels's bravado crumbled, his excuses, departmental discretion, vague suspicions, falling flat. Klein, eyes down, offered no defense. After 2 hours, Chen delivered the verdict. Daniels and Klein were suspended without pay, pending a full investigation by the state attorney general for bias-driven misconduct. The gavel's thud echoed, final, unyielding. James watched from the gallery, not triumphant, but somber, his mind on the countless others without a title, without a camera. Outside, reporters swarmed, microphones thrusting forward. "Will you sue Judge Whitaker?" one shouted. He paused, eyes steady, the Michigan wind cool against his face. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about the next man in cuffs, the one nobody films." His words hung, a challenge to the crowd, the cameras, the country. The chamber emptied, but the silence lingered, heavy with truth. Protesters outside parted as Daniels and Klein exited, their heads low, no words spoken. James walked to his Lincoln Continental, the Capitol's shadow stretching long. The hearing wasn't vengeance, it was a mirror, forcing the system to face itself. Tomorrow he'd return to his courtroom, but today he'd shown what justice could mean when it stood firm, not loud. Folks, this story's climax will stay with you. Don't miss its final chapter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories that grip your heart and demand change, because justice, like James Whitaker, doesn't shout, it stands. 3 months later, James Whitaker stood on the stone steps of the Michigan Law Enforcement Training Academy, the spring breeze carrying the scent of blooming cherry trees and rustling the flags overhead. Before him, 52 cadets in crisp uniforms stood in formation, their eyes locked on him, not with fear, but with a quiet hunger for something better. James adjusted the microphone, his charcoal suit as sharp as ever, his voice steady, resonant. 3 months ago, I was cuffed, not for a crime, but for who I am. That could have made me bitter, but instead, it made me believe in purpose, not punishment. You're here to protect dignity, to see people, not threats. The cadets nodded, some subtly, their faces thoughtful, absorbing the weight of his words. The Academy's new training, bias awareness, de-escalation, constitutional rights, was born from James's story, a cornerstone of reform now rippling across Michigan. The governor had signed a law mandating these standards, plus oversight boards to probe misconduct. Audits of past arrests, sparked by James's case, uncovered patterns long ignored, shaking precincts statewide. Back in his 14th district courtroom, James presided with the same calm he'd carried through that I-94 rest stop ordeal, never mentioning it from the bench, but those who entered felt it. A new awareness that justice wasn't just a word carved above the courthouse door. A young black cadet approached after the speech, his voice soft but firm. "Thank you, sir. I'll serve with honor." James gave a nod, his father's words echoing, "Stay steady, son." That moment, simple yet profound, was the seed of change. The viral video, Mia Torres's courage, the hearing's gavel. These weren't endings, but beginnings. Across Michigan, town halls sprang up, legal clinics offered free counsel, and communities demanded accountability. James's image, standing firm, not vengeful, became a symbol, not of anger, but of hope grounded in action. As he stepped away from the podium, the sun dipping low, James felt the shift, not in the air, but in the future. Change wasn't loud, it was steady, built on choices made when no one watched. This story, folks, isn't just about one man. It's about us all, choosing fairness every day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories that inspire, challenge, and show what justice can be when we stand together. 3 months after Judge James Whitaker's wrongful arrest at the I-94 rest stop, his story leaves us with lessons that resonate far beyond Michigan. First, dignity under pressure can shift the narrative. James's calm refusal to escalate exposed the officer's bias, proving that strength lies in restraint, not rage. Second, one voice, amplified by courage like Mia Torres's video, can spark a movement, showing how ordinary people wield extraordinary power in the digital age. Third, justice demands accountability, not just punishment. The officer's suspension and new training laws reflect a system forced to face its flaws. Finally, change is slow but real. James's speech to cadets planted seeds for a fairer future, reminding us that reform starts with individual choices. These lessons aren't just for courtrooms or precincts, they're for all of us. Every day, we choose how to see others, how to act when no one's watching. James's story challenges us to choose fairness, to question assumptions, to stand firm without shouting. It's a call to be builders, not bystanders, in a world still wrestling with bias. His journey, from cuffs to the Capitol, shows that justice isn't a title or a badge. It's a commitment we renew with every decision. Let's carry that forward in our homes, our communities, our hearts. This story's power lies in its truth, and there's more where it came from. Subscribe to X Daily Stories on YouTube for gripping tales that uncover injustice, inspire action, and remind us what's possible when we stand together. Don't miss the next chapter. Join us to keep the conversation alive.